Snow is melting, temperatures are rising, and that's right, tomorrow is March. You're watching Right on Cue College Sports. That's right, welcome back. You are watching Right on Cue College Sports. I'm your host, Tyson Quiller. Thanks again so much for checking in with us. I want to remind you to like, subscribe, share our videos. You know, it's just a kind of a passion and a hobby of mine to be putting out this content. And we've started to get some good feedback. Keep in mind, we've got the email now right on the letter Q, the letter C, and then S at gmail.com, right on QCS at gmail.com. As I mentioned or hinted to in the intro, we are now less than 2 weeks away from Selection Sunday. Men's and women's NCAA National Championship tournaments for college basketball. Pretty exciting time. Here comes spring. Here comes the most exciting time of the year. And I'm going to start it off right here with college sports and sports in general, but especially with college sports. Man, you have to really check your emotions at the door because there can be some incredible highs and just befuddling, unbelievable lows. No matter what fan base we're talking about. This specifically is why so many people don't bet on college sports as opposed to pro sports. On Thursday, the Colorado Buffaloes, who have been hot fire on a 5-game winning streak, rolled back into Boulder to play host to Arizona State at the CU Event Center. This is a game that they knew they should have had every bit of motivation for. I mean, there's the one argument on the one side, maybe they were overlooking this game for Arizona, but you have to know you're hot fire. You've beaten better teams, Stanford, for example, on the road. And you can't afford to lose to Arizona State. You've completely resurrected your tournament hopes. Now you're back near the bubble picture. Can't drop this one. Colorado Buffaloes lose at home in a blowout. 82-65. Jay just got completely rocked in this game. The Buffs were completely flat, shooting just 38% from the field, only 25% from three. The Buffs had 14 turnovers. 5 of those turnovers came from the freshman KJ Simpson. Four of the Sun Devils players scored 14 or more points. They had a complete revelation of their team. They've never played this well all year, and it was an incredible game for Bobby Hurley and Arizona State. They shot well from 3, like I said, but they just really got whatever they wanted. The terrible Buffaloes defense really just left the court pretty much wide open. And so now you're going, well, maybe this Buffalo squad is out of the tournament. But then, not so fast. As they say about weather in Colorado, if you don't like it, just wait 5 minutes. That's how it is in college basketball this year. If you think your team's not doing well, you wait till the next game. Colorado then Saturday plays host to the number 2 team in the country, the Arizona Wildcats. They were 25-2 on the year, and the Buffaloes come away with an incredible upset. Such an awesome game to watch. I've rewatched it twice already. So much fun watching the kids storm the court. Man, really unified support for the Buffaloes. Buffs pull off the victory, and conversely in a blowout win. 79-63. That's a 16-point win over the number 2 team in the country. My opinion, and we can get to this, but they should be firmly back in the bubble picture for sure. As bad as that loss to Arizona State might have been, this was a better win. So, this was probably the second best defensive performance that Arizona's faced all year, which was really impressive. The first being when they went out to LA and lost to UCLA. They held them to 59 points. This Colorado Buffalo defense held the Wildcats to 22 points below their season average. You heard me correctly. 22 points below their season average. The Buffs defense forced Arizona into 16 turnovers. And then KJ Simpson flipped the script and played a fantastic game. He, especially down the stretch, he played really, really well. Totally redeemed himself from that poor performance against Arizona State. The big man, Mr. Double-Double himself, Jabari Walker, played grown man basketball in this game. He was a grown man. It's a style of basketball Evan Batty plays all the time. But I've been looking for our more finesse, big guys like Dallas Walton in the past to be playing like this. Jabari Walker finally did that. He's done it a few times this year. This was a big-time performance. He collected his 15th double-double on the season, 15 points, 14 rebounds, and completely frustrated the Arizona big men in there all game. Speaking of frustrating the Arizona big men, how about Tristan Da Silva, the sophomore from Germany, Munich, Germany? He played a super crafty style of play underneath the hoop, 6'10". Rather than trying to body, he slithered around. He made some brilliant moves backing down in the post. He put up 19 points for the Buffaloes in this game. Like I mentioned under the hoop, the Arizona Wildcats, they were rotating 3 guys who went 6'11" or taller. The Buffs don't have a single, outside of Lawson Lovering, who was injured and out for the year, the Buffs didn't have a single player who goes taller than 6'10". And so the Arizona Wildcats are rotating 3 guys, one 6'7", one 7 foot, and one 6'11", Azuolas Tubelis. And Tubelis and the Buffaloes out-rebounded this team. The Buffaloes out-rebounded this tall, bulky Arizona number 2 in the country squad. Azuolas Tubelis and Benedict Mathurin kind of got it going at times. Those are their 2 big key weapons, but they couldn't get really any rhythm sustained in the game. I think for Arizona, this was just kind of an off game. Colorado, it just had an incredible environment in the stadium. The players were playing for one another. It was senior day for Evan Batty and a number of these different guys, Luke O'Brien, Eli Parquet. I think it was just kind of a convalescence of dynamics that Arizona just was not prepared for. CU is back on the bubble again, like I mentioned, in my opinion. And still, I saw bracketology this morning. Still, no one's given CU much credit. They only have 10 losses, and now they've beaten the number 2 team in the country. I don't know what the heck these bracketologists want. Meanwhile, there's 4 teams in contention out of the West Coast Conference. Teams like BYU has 9 losses. Why in the world BYU would be considered ahead of Colorado completely blows my mind. But Colorado's back in action next Saturday at Utah. Have to win that game. Must win. If they lose that game, they're out of the tournament unless they win the conference tournament. So that's a must win at Utah. Big game. Now with that being said, that's number 2 that lost on Saturday. Let's just kick off a wild weekend in college basketball because after number 2 loss to Colorado, number 1 Gonzaga goes down to number 23 St. Mary's on the road, 57-67. Yes, you heard that correctly. Gonzaga scored 57 points. They're averaging almost 90 points a game. And St. Mary's held them to 57. Gonzaga rolled into the McKeon Pavilion out there at St. Mary's, having won 17 games in a row, and they just beat San Francisco, who's projected to be a tournament team, by 16 points on the road. I mean, this Gonzaga squad looked like a juggernaut. They looked unstoppable. But the Gales just jumped all over them from the tip. They had a 10-point lead in the first 5 minutes of the game, and they never looked back. Behind the 3-headed monster of Tommy Kuhse, Matthias Tass, and Alex Dukas, who really powered pretty much their offense. Kuhse finished with 14 points, Tass 13, and Dukas 10. But the thing about this St. Mary's squad that they knew they needed to do, as we discussed, is St. Mary's doesn't have enough firepower on offense to hang with Gonzaga. So they had to win on defense. And they held Drew Timme and Chet Holmgren, 2, relatively consensus candidates for National Player of the Year, held them both to 6 points apiece. And each of them only shot 28% from the field. I mean, an incredible defensive performance, very emotional, very driven, grassroots powered, just like the CU game. What you're going to see is a tendency on this Saturday, a lot of bubble home teams hosted really high-ranked, high-powered teams who were traveling on the road, and it was just a juggernaut clash. So the strategy was to take away the bigs, clearly, for St. Mary's, and that's what they did, and make the guards beat them. Andrew Nembhard and the other guards just didn't have enough. I think Gonzaga is still probably the best team in the country, but St. Mary's, I think, showed us a lot. I think St. Mary's absolutely belongs in the tournament. They might have just improved their stock from an 8 line to like a 5 line, maybe, or something along those lines. Maybe not quite a 5, maybe from like a 9 to a 6. So that probably said more about St. Mary's than it did Gonzaga. Then, in the great state of Tennessee, number 3 in the country, Auburn, rolled in to the Vols, who just last week beat Kentucky at home. This might be one of the most dynamic home environments in all of college basketball. Really pretty incredible. And Tennessee pulls off the upset 67-62 over Auburn. Auburn has been in the top 3 in the country for 6 weeks at least. They have an incredible team. The leading shot blocker in the country in Walker Kessler. They have probably the dude who's going to be the number 1 overall NBA draft pick in Jabari Walker. 2 stud guards in Wendell Green and Katie Johnson. And Tennessee just said, nope, here and no further. It wasn't quite the blowout they got against Kentucky, but Tennessee was down by 7 points at the half, but their defense just locked Auburn down. Auburn could not score in the second half. Jabari Smith finished with 27 and 8 rebounds. Katie Johnson had 18 points, but Tennessee out-rebounded Auburn by 23. 23. Okay, this is an Auburn squad that was playing a 6'10 dude and a 7-foot dude under the hoop, and Tennessee out-rebounded them by 23. Unbelievable. Fulkerson had 6 all by himself, 6 massive offensive rebounds that led to scores that just kept Tennessee out in front in this game. Also, I got to tell you, this kid Josiah Jordan James is really turning into a solid threat for Tennessee. He had 10 points, 9 rebounds. They're looking like a much improved squad. If I had to say a comparison, I would say Tennessee in kind of their ascendancy down the stretch here, a lot kind of like Texas Tech out of the Big 12, where you think that the power teams are Kansas and Baylor, just like in the SEC. You think the power teams are Auburn and Kentucky, but don't sleep on Tennessee and Texas Tech. They're coming. With all of that being said, then, oh my goodness, the weekend began with number 4 Purdue traveling on the road to East Lansing, and Tom Izzo finally, after his 3rd attempt, finally gets that big win that ties him with Bob Knight for most Big Ten wins from a coach in career history. Michigan State wins the game 68-65. This is a game that Michigan State led by only 3 at halftime. This was just a back and forth battle. Marcus Bingham played an incredible game, and the new stud flashing onto the scene, Tyson Walker, man, watch out for him. He is powering this Michigan State team right into the NCAA tournament. He hit a big 3 when the game was tied right at the end of regulation to seal the victory. Tyson Walker, watch out, he is a stud. And then out of the SEC, number 6 in the country, Kentucky traveled to Arkansas. Arkansas is another team kind of like Tennessee, Texas Tech. Been kind of going under the radar, but here they come, man. And Arkansas, number 16 in the country, gets the big win at home, 75-73. Arkansas just ran away with this game from the start. They were up by 6 points at halftime, really controlled the game in the first half. J.D. Notre went for 30 points with 8 assists in this game. But the early season struggles were really in trying to figure out who the next weapon was for Arkansas outside of J.D. Notre. Well, the 6'10 forward, the sophomore Jalen Williams, welcome to the show, young man. He got 16 points and 12 rebounds, a big double-double for him. He's now on a 6-game double-double streak, which is pretty impressive coming down the stretch. Arkansas is hot. They're going to be very hot coming into that SEC conference tournament. He's going to be a real key piece for this squad, Jalen Williams, moving forward. Arkansas is one of the hottest teams, like I mentioned, in the country right now. They've won 13 of their last 14 games. In that stretch, they knocked off 4 ranked teams, 2 teams in the top 6 in the country. Speaking of double-doubles, though, Mr. Double-Double himself, the real Mr. Double-Double, okay? Oscar Tshiebwe went for 30 points, 18 rebounds. That's just grown man basketball. It's really impressive. He does it day in, day out, week in, week out. But with Shavir Wheeler and Ty Washington still kind of on minutes restriction, coming back from their injuries, You needed the support from Ellis, from Davion Mintz, from Kellen Grady. Mintz and Grady combined for 4 points and 4 rebounds in the game. Just flat out not acceptable. That's not going to get you a win anywhere in the SEC when those guys are bringing that kind of production. I think Kentucky really needs Shavir Wheeler and Ty Washington back full-time quickly. Shavir Wheeler, he's not a massive stat sheet stuffer, but he's one of the best assist men. Great point guard. Reminds me a lot of Colorado's McKinley Wright from last year. They need him back. He really orchestrates the offense for them. This is the first time in the AP poll era that all 6 of the top 6 teams in the country lost on the same day. The first time in the AP poll era. If you get a chance to go back and watch some of these games, you're going to want to check them out. Totally exciting, a lot of fun. Ultimately, though, what happens when all 6 at the top lose? I mean, do they stay at the top, right? So ultimately, Gonzaga and Arizona State at 1 and 2, respectively. Baylor, coming off of that big win that they got over Kansas, flies up 7 spots to number 3 in the country. I think they're playing a special brand of basketball, really kind of emotional style since Jonathan Tchamwa went out for the year. I would keep my eye out for that. LJ Cryer did not play in this game, though, so you want to try and get him healthy and back for the NCAA tournament. Add that third piece so that he can pick up the slack when James Akinjo does James Akinjo things. Duke jumps up to number 4 in the country. Then our top 10 finishes out Auburn at 25 and 4. Number 6, Kansas, 23 and 5. 7 is Kentucky, 23 and 6. Purdue is 8, 24 and 5. Providence, a very sneaky good team out of the Big East. Likely they have a big game tonight against Villanova. If they win that, they will secure their first ever regular season Big East title. Really pretty cool, good, fun time to be a fan of the Friars if you live out east. They're number 9 in the country currently, 24 and 3. Wisconsin, 23 and 5, is number 10. Now let's dip into kind of our forte, our specialty, where we enjoy discussing, and that's kind of local teams. So let's start right here. Last Wednesday, we had the border war renewed on the Colorado side of the border this time, and Colorado State got their revenge against the Wyoming Cowboys, 61-55. This is a game that Colorado State led by 4 at halftime, and they just held on. It went back and forth in the second half. I got to tell you, I really wish I could have made it to this game, but Moby was flat out rocking. Both teams played great defense throughout the game, but ultimately, what it came down to, in my opinion, the superstars from Colorado State just outplayed the superstars from Wyoming, which is pretty incredible because Wyoming's got a hell of a pair of superstars on their side of the bench. The Rams, David Roddy and Isaiah Stevens combined for 36 points. Well, Graham Ike and Hunter Maldonado from Wyoming combined for just 12 points. Came up a little small in that rivalry showdown. But the senior guard, Drake Jeffries, did all he could. He's really coming on as a solid third threat. His 22 points, though, just weren't enough with Ike and Maldo struggling like they were. So Colorado State gets that revenge, and now these two are battling in second and third in the Mountain West, with Boise State sitting on top of the pile right now. Anyways, that was the big game from Wednesday, and then we roll into the weekend, and the question becomes, can they each hold serve over the weekend? Well, Colorado State played at Utah State. They got the big win, 66-55 on the road. Utah State, kind of a sneaky good team. This was a game that the Rams controlled throughout. Solid defense, which is normally their calling card, was their calling card in this game as usual. The Aggies really tried to take away the Big Two, though. It was a totally different game than most of the games you would see Colorado State in. So what we've started to see now from the Rams and Nico Medved's squad is their support players are really stepping up for this team. It's been kind of Deshaun Thomas in the past, but this time it was the senior guard, Kendall Moore. He went for 23 and 6 on 70% shooting. They basically said, Kendall Moore, you can't beat us. And he said, yeah, I can. I'll beat you. Colorado State has a big game. They host Boise State on Saturday at Moby. That one, too, should be sold out. Colorado State, unfortunately, is too far back. One game too far back to make it to win the Mountain West regular season title. However, if they win this game, it will open a door for Wyoming to potentially dethrone Boise State and get into the top spot to win the regular season title in the Mountain West. Bracketology currently has the Colorado State Rams as a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. Then, later on Saturday, Nevada, the Wolfpack, traveled to Wyoming to see if they could take their shot at one of the top teams in the Mountain West, and Wyoming held serve at home. Pretty solid, controlled victory. They had a 14-point victory at halftime. They ended up winning by 13. Really kind of a controlled, dominant performance throughout. Wyoming wins 74-61. They took this game and they just got right back on track. It's pretty clear their head coach Jeff Linder, talked to them about, hey, we need to get back to our basics, get back to our style of basketball. We can't allow people to take away our superstars like Colorado State did, and so Graham Ike goes for 23 and 15, another double-double for the big man, and Hunter Maldonado bounces back, 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists. There was a point in time where it looked like he might be able to get a triple-double. Possessions kind of faded away, missed a few shots, wasn't able to line up assists just right, but an incredible performance out of both of them, bouncing back after the Colorado State loss. Wyoming has 3 games remaining on their schedule, and Colorado State only has 1. So Wyoming has had to reschedule a couple more because of the COVID situations. They need to win all 3 to have a shot at winning the conference regular season title. And again, like I mentioned, CSU also needs to beat Boise State on Saturday. So if you're a Wyoming fan, got to win out, and then you got to be rooting for, and it may hurt you, but you got to root for the boys in Fort Collins to knock off Boise State to open that door for you. Bracketology currently has the Cowboys as an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament. I've been saying it for a couple weeks now. Both of these teams are solidly into the NCAA tournament. Not a ton of bubble worries for them. The team out of the Mountain West that might have bubble concern, or that does have bubble concern, is San Diego State. They're going to need to pull off some big wins, one of which would be they're going to play Wyoming, so they need to beat Wyoming. That would be a good win for them. But I think at this point, San Diego State's probably out, and they'll be in the NIT tournament, and you'll have the 3 teams, Boise State, Colorado State, and Wyoming, in the NCAA tournament. So, with 1 week left before the conference tournaments kick off, let's take another look and check in on the bubble. So here's the good news. If you're a bubble team like Colorado, for example, okay, or San Diego State, here's the good news from the action over the weekend. Creighton lost on the road in a dominating fashion. They at this time of the year, you have to either lose close or win big. Or win barely. You can't be losing big. And they lost by 21 points on the road to Providence, a team I told you, sneaky good team out of the Big East. Creighton is a team you need to continue to root for to lose if you are a bubble team. Then another good news game. Rutgers lost at home to Wisconsin. Wisconsin played really solid basketball in this one. Rutgers now has 12 losses. But they have some really, really big, impressive wins. I still think Rutgers, if they win 3 games in the Big Ten tournament, that they're probably in. Even if they don't win the conference championship. So that means if they make it to the semis, or if they make it to the Big Ten tournament championship, I think they're probably in. But if they don't do that, then they're probably out at this point. Also, Florida State, a team that, man, I had way overestimated preseason. I thought they were right on par with Duke as one of the best teams in the ACC. They have really been unimpressive. Now, Leonard Hamilton is a great coach, but there have been coaching issues. They've also dealt with a ton of injury issues. They've got, I think the last game I saw for them, I think they were starting 3 freshmen and a sophomore, which makes it really, really difficult to have that kind of mesh together. They'll be a really talented team that bounces back next year, but they're out of the tournament as far as right now. They already have 13 losses, so you want them knocking off these bubble teams, and they came up big on Saturday with a 1-point win at Virginia. Virginia, legit bubble team. Florida State knocks them off. That's good news for the Colorado Buffaloes. And now, the bad news. I mentioned the West Coast Conference has 4 teams, for whatever reason, that are receiving tournament thought, consideration. Start off the bad news. San Francisco and BYU out of the West Coast Conference both won. That's not good for Colorado. Then we roll into the Big 12, and TCU, Jamie Dixon's squad, knocks off at home number 9 Texas Tech. Probably maybe one of the more impressive wins of the weekend, and that's saying a lot considering the top 6 teams all lost in the country, but that really firmly shoves TCU to the top half of the bubble. Not good news if you're a bubble team. Also, Notre Dame and Wake Forest both won, and then Indiana beat Minnesota on the road. You needed some of those to bounce the other way. So now, let's take a look at the road ahead, and this is all with the bubble in mind. Specifically, I'm talking to Colorado fans, okay? These are the games you need to go the way you need them to go, okay? Starting tonight, San Diego State at Wyoming. Wyoming needs to beat San Diego State. That will remove San Diego State from the bubble. Also tonight, Florida, who's firmly on the bubble, is playing at Vanderbilt. I don't think that there's a real chance Vanderbilt can beat them, but we want to be rooting for Vanderbilt to beat Florida. Then on Tuesday, number 5, Kansas, travels to TCU. You need Kansas to get a dominating win there, and then that'll give TCU their 10th loss on the year. They play in the Big 12, but they had a really weak non-conference early part of the season. They're firmly on the middle or just barely on the top half of the bubble. So a loss to Kansas, another loss maybe down the stretch, or if they bow out of the Big 12 conference tournament early, then they might not be dancing come the tournament time. Then also tomorrow, Tuesday at 6:30 on FS1, you have the big rivalry out of the Mitten State, Michigan. Michigan State traveling to Michigan. You know, with Michigan State's big win over Purdue over the weekend, I think that they are probably likely to be in. So that's not a team you want to be rooting to lose. You want Michigan State to win this game. Michigan, just like I mentioned, Michigan already has 12 losses also. I think if Michigan State wins this, Michigan is probably out of consideration for the NCAA tournament unless they win the Big Ten tournament. Then Wednesday, Notre Dame at Florida State. Like I mentioned, you want to root really hard for Leonard Hamilton's bunch at Florida State to knock off Notre Dame. Notre Dame's currently, I think, an 8 seed, so you probably need, they have 8 losses on the year. You probably need 2 or maybe 2 losses before they get to the conference tournament. Then the third loss in the tournament will give them 11 losses. They might be on the outside looking in. The problem with them is they knocked off Ohio State right after Ohio State beat Duke earlier in the year. Very impressive win for Notre Dame. I will say, though, for Colorado fans, none of these wins are as impressive as Colorado's win over Arizona, with the exception of teams that have beat the number 1 team in the country, for example, because Arizona was number 2. Then we come to another clash of 2 solid bubble teams. Rutgers at Indiana on Wednesday as well. Rutgers, I think your best chance is to get Rutgers out, not Indiana. So I think, and Rutgers also already has 12 losses, but they just have so many good wins. But I think you want Indiana to win this one at home. Trace Jackson Davis is a sensational player for Indiana. They're going to find a way into the NCAA tournament. They're a fun bunch. Hopefully they can hold serve at home and remove Rutgers from the picture. Also on Wednesday, number 21 Connecticut travels to Creighton. Creighton 19-9 on the year. Now they lost over the weekend, which helps out the other bubble teams. However, if Creighton beats UConn at home, that will probably move them back up into that TCU area, that top half of the bubble discussion. Then the final game on Wednesday that really impacts the bubble situation, you have Miami at 20-9 traveling to Boston College. Boston College 11-17 on the year. Boston College not a very good team. However, at home, probably their senior night game. Hopefully they can get amped up, get excited, maybe give a 10th loss to Miami. That would move Miami from they're probably at like the 9-10 line right now. Maybe a loss there will move them down to the 11 or legit bubble discussion. 2 more games. Thursday, Cincinnati travels to SMU. Cincinnati's a good team. They're not in consideration really for the NCAA tournament. 17-12 on the year. They're a team that could beat SMU. SMU 20-7 on the year. SMU's just on the last 4 in Okay, so one loss would remove SMU from the tournament at this point. Cincinnati maybe could do that. It is at home, though, for SMU. And then the final game on Thursday, Oregon at Washington. Now, the kid Terrell Brown Jr. from Washington is the best player in the Pac-12 conference. Unfortunately, he's not on one of the top teams, so he's going to get a little shade when it comes to Pac-12 Player of the Year. His numbers say he should get it, but it's probably going to end up going to like Benedict Mathurin out at Arizona. This is a team, Washington, that can beat Oregon at home. So that would be good for the Buffaloes if Washington can knock off Oregon as well. Keep in mind BYU and San Francisco out of the West Coast Conference. They start the West Coast Conference tournament on Friday. They're both bubble teams. San Francisco legit on the bubble. BYU probably a little more safely into the tournament, maybe a 9 seed right now. So you want the two of them to bow out of that conference tournament early. And then from this point forward, I want to look to another strategy when we're talking about bubble situations, and that is you have to always beware of a stolen bid. We saw it out of Oregon State last year. They were not going to go to the NCAA tournament, got hot, went on a roll, won the Pac-12 tournament, stole a bid from somebody who was probably on the bubble just on the inside. So you need, out of the West Coast Conference, you need Gonzaga or St. Mary's to win that conference tournament. Then, also on Friday, out of the Ohio Valley Conference, Murray State is number 19 in the country. They're going to the tournament either way. So you need them to win their conference tournament as well. Probably a similar situation Saturday with South Dakota State out of the Summit League. They only have 4 losses on the year, 27-4. They might make the tournament still, even if they don't win their conference tournament. So that's a team you want to root for, South Dakota State. And then there's 2 peculiar situations that you want to be wary of, be careful of, as you're a Colorado Buffalo fan and you're considering this bubble situation. Okay, first of all, Colorado's got to win at Utah. You have to do that. Okay, otherwise none of this is worth even discussing. But then out of the Atlantic 10 Conference, this is a conference that could play a spoiler. You have 4 teams that could win this conference tournament relatively credibly. Okay, so right now, Davidson, 24-4 on the year, they're sitting on the 11 seed in the NCAA tournament. Firmly on the bubble are 3 more teams. Okay, but probably bubble out, but they're on the bubble, and that's VCU at 20-7 on the year, Dayton at 20-9, and St. Bonaventure at 19-7. VCU beat Davidson on the road at Davidson, so VCU can knock off Davidson, and then Dayton plays host to Davidson this coming Saturday. So we'll find out where those 2 teams stand. But that's definitely a league that could have a spoiler bid. That would not be good if you are another bubble team. The other conference that legitimately could have a spoiler bid is the Missouri Valley Conference. Loyola Chicago, 22-7. You might remember them from their Sweet 16 kind of miracle run last year. They knocked off number 1 seed Illinois in the second round of the tournament. Well, anyways, their head coach has left, and their big man, Kraut, or I can't remember exactly what his name was, but he's gone on as well, and so it's kind of a new team with a new vibe. They're not as good as they were last year, but they're still one of the better teams in their conference. They're currently on the bubble. They're the only one team that's on the bubble. So if another team outside of Loyola Chicago wins this conference, but they meet Loyola Chicago in the conference championship and just barely beat Loyola, then maybe Loyola gets in 2, and you have 2 teams out of the Missouri Valley. That would be a bid stealer. Your other teams in consideration, Missouri State, 22-9 on the year, would not get into the tournament unless they won their conference tournament. They beat Loyola on the road already this year, so they can certainly knock off Loyola Chicago. Then you have Drake, 22-9 on the year. Drake beat Loyola twice. Loyola has not beaten Drake this year. Okay? So that's absolutely a team that can knock off Loyola Chicago and open up a door for a 2-bid league here. And then currently the team that's top in the conference right now, they just beat Loyola on Saturday, and that's Northern Iowa. But they're only 18-10 on the year. So those other 3 teams absolutely not making the NCAA tournament unless they knock off Loyola Chicago. Every one of them has shown that they can do it. So that one I'm nervous about, can be a real bid stealer. But anyways, with all that being said, this is Right on Cue College Sports. I appreciate you checking in. I appreciate your support. Please remember, send me your feedback, send me your suggestions, rightonqcs@gmail.com. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, and we'll get at you next time.